Just a couple of minutes, just a couple of seconds. I mean, we are just making it live.
Sure.
Yeah, Nina, you can start now. It's all yours now.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. You guys can all see my screen, right? So today's topic is how good AI is for conversation. These days with ChatGPT, everybody's talking about generative AI, and we can solve any problem through conversation or ChatGPT. So we wanted to bring you in this session. First, we will introduce ourselves, who we are and what we do. And then we will talk about what is a conversation, what is really mean by a good conversation, and what are the different components, solution components of a conversational AI solution is going to be, and how mature your conversational AI or the chatbot solution is. And then finally, we will use a case study where we will show how generative AI, what are the limitations and the areas where it will work correctly. So we will use that as a hands-on case study to show you how should you be using conversational AI, especially when it comes to ChatGPT. So with the introduction, let me talk about myself. I think you already heard few things about me. I definitely have a 30 plus years. Actually, I designed my first conversational engine long time back for Quest Communication Company, which is a telephone company. They were acquired by Level 3. They were acquired by different companies, and then now finally with Level 3. And so I deployed a chatbot virtual assistant, not true virtual assistant, but agent-assisted conversational chatbot, which will help them with the customer interaction. And using that solution, their sales went up 150%. So I think that was one of the biggest application or one of the very powerful application I had worked on. So I have worked on many other conversational AI solutions. I do teach conversational AI through various online courses. What happened here? And I do have experience in various industries like telecom. We started with telecom, but then got into healthcare. Currently, I'm working in healthcare, and then I have also worked in retail and government. And I have deployed many, many AI solutions worldwide, including Canada, US, Asia, and Europe. And then I have many publications in many magazines, including IEEE, AAAI, Word of Watson, IBM, and Insights, and many, many prestigious places where I have published my AI papers. And I started my career with Accenture, and then with Quest or the CenturyLink, or now the Level 3 company got acquired multiple times. I worked there for many, many years as a director of principal architect and director at KPMG and IBM on solving the AI solutions. And my contact details are here, and you will be getting a copy of my presentation through after the class, I believe. So here are my contact details. Feel free to communicate with me if you have any questions on this presentation. And by the way, I will like to keep it little light. So in the sense that if you have any questions, put your questions in the chat. I see 2 questions in the chat. Is anybody, please, DataHour people, if you can keep an eye on the chat and prompt me if there is any question directed to me.
Sure, Level 2.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just said, yeah, we'll do.
Okay,
we'll look at chat.
Okay, and in case anybody has any questions, they can prompt or can put it in the chat bot. We can take questions in between also. There is no hard and fast rule that all the question answers should happen only at the end of the call. So please feel free to ask questions as you have them. Arvind, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, let me introduce myself. If you can click through the prompts here. I work for KPMG and I teach KPMG professionals, advisory professionals on the concepts of data, analytics, and AI. What you see behind me is a lake house facility that we have built in Florida. It is a dedicated KPMG facility for teaching KPMG professionals. And I go there about once a month to teach on a face-to-face basis with many of the KPMG professionals. I have a PhD from Carnegie Mellon University in the field of AI. I worked under a Nobel Prize winner, so that was one of my favorite ways of talking about AI. And like Nina, I have got experience in a variety of industries. A lot of my work has been in telecom and media. Those are the two industries that I have done most work on. And now I'm doing a fair amount of work in the field of accounting, where KPMG is looking at AI from the perspective of risk. I have written 4 books at various stages of my life, which are available through Amazon. And there are also many other publications. So probably the best way to get to read more about my work is if you go to Amazon and look for any of my books. The latest book, Cognitive Things, does talk about chatbots, and it happens to have a little bit dated, but a fairly good understanding of how you converse with any device of your choice. Next slide.
Okay, so I will start with what is a good conversation? What do you mean by a conversation? And here we are talking about a conversation. It can start with a conversation between 2 people, but then we are talking about conversation between a human and a non-human device, a chatbot sitting behind and is conversing it. So if you know what is a good conversation, then we should design those same good conversation principles also in your chatbot or in your AI application, which is providing assistance to your user. And then I will get into what are the components, what's the maturity model is, how will you say if it is a maturity level 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of your conversational AI solution. I'm interchangeably using the conversational AI with chatbot. People are more used to chatbot, but chatbot is a bot sitting or interacting with a user, while conversational AI is a generic term which I use to define any AI-based solution which involves in conversation. And finally, Arvind will talk about a case study for Python helper. So what is a conversational AI? When you converse with somebody, if you look at the Webster dictionary, then conversation is really an exchange of whether it's a sentiment, whether it's an observation or ideas between 2 people. So if people are talking to each other, they are just exchanging their ideas or sentiment or something. So this is a conversation happening between the 2 people. And what do you use? You use your native language. If you are in English speaking, you will speak in English to converse with the other person. If you are in a non-English, you are a Hispanic origin, you might be talking in Spanish or any other language. So conversation is nothing but talking in your native language with a second person, and discussing your ideas, your observations, your sentiment, feelings, whatever. So if you are, what I will do that I will take an example from my travel agent, virtual travel agent chatbot, and where there is a virtual chatbot sitting here, and there is a person who's interacting with this chatbot. So if you look at that, this is a simple, the person, the conversational bot says that, "Hi, Jim, thanks for calling National Airlines. I'm virtual assistant, can understand." So it's welcoming and inviting the other person to come and converse with her. I just call her because there is a female picture, but can be a male voice or a female voice. So Jim is asking, "Oh, is my flight on time?" And you can see this just a general, normal conversation. And then agent will say, "Yeah, can you provide me a prior details? What is your departure city, arrival date and time?" Jim just said, "Oh, LA to New York tomorrow." Then you can see, then agent say, "Oh, I see flights tomorrow from Los Angeles to Newark, New Jersey. Do you have the airport correctly identified? So it already selected Newark, New Jersey as the airport, though he said New York. So you can see that agent had the capability to infer from the statement Jim has said, to infer where he's traveling. And then more conversation, oh, your flight leaves around 3 p.m. There are 2 flight options and which flight you want to take. The seats are available in this flight. What is the reason for your travel? I have a meeting. So you can see this is just a conversation happening between a chatbot and Jim. Jim happens to be the customer of a national airlines, which is a travel, which is airlines which he's calling regarding his travel arrangement. So I will be using this example to talk about what is different components of it, or when you are designing conversational AI solution, what are the things you really have to think about or talk about. So first is listening. Listening is very, very important. So like if you have 2 people working, if you don't listen to your customer or your user, you will not know what questions he's asking or she's asking. So then you can really answer it. So in this case, Jim asked, is my flight on time? The bot, oh, he's really talking about flight status. So it's okay. So what are the kind of things needs to go with that? So every conversation Jim is saying, bot is inferring what exactly Jim is talking about. So that is listening. If he doesn't listen, if the bot doesn't listen to its user base, then he or she will not know how to respond to his answers, how to give answers to his queries. So the second is the knowledge of subject area. So if you look at that, bot does have a knowledge about the travel agency or the traveling domain, because when say I'm traveling tomorrow, it knew that New York, and customer already said I'm traveling from LA to New York tomorrow. Though New York has 2 airports, John F. Kennedy and LaGuardia, but Newark International Airport also happens to be nearby airport in Newark, which is a nearby state, New Jersey. So New York and New Jersey, and technically the person can travel to any of these airports. So the bot did have a knowledge of where are the airports and how close they are to the New York. And it brought Newark International Airport because that flight was available or was coming from LA at that time. So third component is empathy. Empathy is a very, very important thing. Like you really need to understand what are the needs, what are the requirements of your users are, so you can connect with your user correctly. If you don't have empathy, you don't understand the needs, then you may or may not be able to connect with your user correctly. So that's why when he's trying to change his flight, you really ask the question, what time do you really need to reach? Because based on his requirement, based on his need, the bot can recommend appropriate flight. So empathy with needs is a very important factor when you are designing a conversational AI solution. Then the next is persuasion, because once you understand the need, then you can recommend a solution, and then you can persuade your user to zero in on that solution because it connects with the user needs. So the bot responded that we have seats on a 3 p.m. flight because you would like to reach earlier, right? So it confirming that I'm giving you this flight option, and we do have a seat on this 3 p.m. flight because you have to reach early. And then the trusted relationship. Trusted relationship means that if user has a need in different area which conversational AI solution cannot answer or does not really know how to respond that, they can connect to the trusted partners. In this case, the person is reaching early, Jim is reaching early, so then he will have a need for a hotel stay. So bot can connect to a trusted partner like Hilton because he is a Hilton Honors member and traveling for a work. So at the end, when the whole travel solution is completed and they have changed his flight to reach early there, then the bot can connect to the trusted hotel partner of choice to my user, to my customer. So those are the 5 components. And if you look at that in this travel example, listening, the bot is always listening. He's listening to Jim, is my flight on time? So that's the first. Everywhere you can see, every time he's listening, he's providing the right answer based on the listening capabilities. Knowledge of subject area, we already talked about it, though Jim only said LA to New York. But bot find out that there is a flight from Los Angeles to Newark, New Jersey, which also leaves, is leaving tomorrow. So that's why he asked whether he said there are 2 flight options, and then whether you are leaving 3 p.m. or 10:45 p.m. So it's since Jim said that I have a 9 a.m. meeting at the office, you will have to connect with his user needs, and then you will give him a 3 p.m. flight so that he can reach there in the night time, in appropriate time, so that he can attend 9 a.m. flight. Cost difference, so then you are still continuing to listen. So you will have to persuade the user that, yeah, we have the seat, and since you want to reach early, don't you want to reach early? Then this is the flight here option for you. So that's a persuasion to connect the option or whatever you are selling to your client or to the user with the user needs. And finally, trusting relationship that you are reaching early. Would you like to get transferred to your trusted partner, Hilton, because you are a Hilton Honors member? So those are the 5 components of a conversational AI solution or travel, or in the context of virtual travel agent, I identified all these 5 components. So now let's come back to and say, when you are designing a conversational AI solution, what are the things you have to worry about? What are the kind of components you have to do? So first thing is called utterance. So most of the time, conversational AI solutions are speech-driven. So you are talking, saying, I want to reach early, good morning. So you have a speech signal. So in any conversational AI solution, if you have a speech bot or a voice bot, you will take the speech signal and convert into a text. And the text, the transcribed text, is called utterance. So in this example, if you look at that, your utterance is my flight on time. That's an utterance. Or LA to New York tomorrow. That's also utterance. So whatever is the transcribed text. So if this was a voice bot and Jim said LA to New York tomorrow, then if you transcribe from speech to text, then whatever the text you get, that is called utterance. So those are the examples. Yep, he said, yep, that's utterance. Or if you look at, I have a 9 a.m. meeting, that also is an utterance. Or what's the cost difference? That's also is an utterance. So utterance is transcribed text. If it is a voice bot, or if it is a text bot, then whatever text your user is typing, that is called utterance. So that is one component, how you will understand different utterances to understand. So once you are given utterances, what is the intent? Intent is like, if you look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it's really what is the purpose behind the sentence, or what he's thinking, what is he trying to do with that. So basically, in general, what is the purpose? So if you look at the utterance, if I analyze the utterance, I try to understand what is the intent behind that sentence. So if I look at it here, from my travel example, it's my flight on time. It's really talking about flight status. Or when he say, yep, that means it's some sort of affirmation that he agrees with what I just said. Or I have a 9 a.m. meeting at the office. He's talking about timely arrival need, that he needs to reach there on time for a 9 a.m. meeting. Or what's the cost difference, cost impact. So those are like, what are the hidden purpose behind that utterance. So you can really see, is my flight on time? Is a flight status? Yep, is affirmation. So we talked about utterance, we talked about intent. Let's talk about entity. Entity are really, if you look at again at the website, these are the information of interest. These are the proper nouns which you can extract from a utterance, from a conversation. So if we have this travel example, LA to New York tomorrow, I have 3 entities. One is your departure airport, which is LA, Los Angeles, arrival airport, which is in New York. And then you have a travel date, which is tomorrow. So if today is what is the date today? March 14th, then tomorrow is going to be March 15th. So you are extracting 3 major entities from this utterance. So that is called entity, proper noun. The context. Conversations are always done in a context. So whatever you are saying, there is a previous context to that. So context can be for a given session. In this session, what is my context? Or across multiple sessions. This is the second time I'm connecting with the bot. Last time I called, I have these issues, or these were my question in the last time, which I could not get an answer. So you can be across a session, in a given session, or across multiple sessions, or between 2 parties context. So if you look at this travel scenario, LA to New York tomorrow, if today is, I put it January 3rd, but if it is today is March 14th, then tomorrow we are talking about March 15th, or if today was January 3rd, then we are talking about flight on January 4th. So, and then what is a dialogue? Dialogue is like, how does bot are designed? And that is called dialogue. Like, how do you converse? So dialogue always start with a welcome statement. You welcome then you understand from the spoken word or from the transcribed text, what is the intent behind the conversation. And if you don't understand anything, you can disambiguate. Disambiguation is really how to clarify your questions. And then once you clarify it, you will respond with a knowledgeable response. And then finally, and you will keep iterating till all the questions which your user is asking have been responded. And finally, you might have a closing statement. So those are your welcoming statement, your understanding the intent, clarifying the intent if you don't understand, responding, and the closing statement. So if you look at the travel example, this was the welcoming statement. Hi, Jim, thanks for calling. Then this is listening to it, so it's flight on time. That's your flight status. Then you clarify, there are multiple flights. I see 2 flights. Do I have the airport clearly identified? Because they picked up a New Jersey airport, Newark, New Jersey. So it needs to make sure that this is the right airport. And then again, disambiguation that there are 2 flights. Which one should I take? Which one? And then respond. Once you know the right answer, then you can respond after the disambiguation is clarified. And finally, you listen again. He's talking about cost difference, and then you respond. And finally, your closing statement, because he has completed the change for the change in flight, just creating a closing statement to connect user either with the trusted partner or just close the conversation by saying, looks like we are done, have a nice day, or something like that. So that really are the component of the dialogue. And so what we talked about, conversational AI, you have utterances, which are the sentences, original sentences used in the conversation. Then we talked about intent, what is the purpose behind the utterances. Then we talked about entity, proper noun, or information of interest, which you extracted from an utterance or from a conversation. We talked about context. What is the context in a given session or across session? Then we talked about dialogue. How do we chain all these sentences together to solve a user's query or question about a given conversation? So those are 5 things we talked about. There are a lot more things in a conversational AI. So what I'm putting together, what are the solution component of a conversational AI? You do need, if it is a voice bot, you do need speech to text. And once you generate the response in text, you do need a text to speech, so you can communicate that back in a voice back to your user. So those are getting 2 major components when you are dealing with a voice bot capabilities. You do need intent deduction. So a component which can deduct what are the intent behind the spoken words or the transcribed text. You should have a module to do the entity extraction and generating the natural language for the response, disambiguation, chit chat, query update, and then of course the conversation strategy are important. Like based on what kind of a bot you are building, you need to, what is the personality of the bot? So if you look at the TurboTax, that TurboTax is a very, very accounting subject and a little bit dry subject. So their chatbot is designed with a very happy or funny personality. So if you converse with a TurboTax chatbot, you will be laughing a lot, and it is extremely funny. So conversational strategy is like, what should be the personality of your bot? What should be how should you design your conversation or the utterances so that it reflects the personality of your bot? And then, of course, you need governance, which really talks about how to govern the whole thing in a deployment. Once you get it deployed, how do you keep maintaining? What are the governance issues? How do you keep maintaining your knowledge base? How do you keep maintaining your intent and entities and the whole solution so that it is up to date with all the right knowledge and all the right information? So let me come to the maturity model. So what in my case, we have identified, and we have several, as I mentioned, I have several online courses on conversational AI, and I have defined in detail what are the different maturity levels are. So level 1, everybody might have seen it. This is very structured. So you might have seen some of the bots says that, please press 1 for this, 2 for this, 3 for this, 4 for this, right? So that is structured. Your questions are structured. You are taking input as 1, 2, 3, 4 from your customer. And then based on what they have selected, 1, 2, 3, 4, you are providing a structured response. So what really is happening that when the structured questions are coming in, you go to the backend, your database, or wherever your backend knowledge base is, you query it, get the questions, and then you provide a structured response to a structured question. You will have a speech to text and text to speech if it is a voice bot, to convert from speech to text, and then back from the response text to speech. So that's a very simple level 1 bot, which all the questions are coming as a structured and the responses are generated as a structured response. Then level 2 is a natural language query. In this one, user can ask any unstructured questions. It can say, can you tell me, I need to change my flight. So all the questions are coming in an unstructured manner. User can ask either, I need to change my flight, or what is the status of my flight, or what will it take to change my flight? In any of the format, he or she can ask question to the bot. So the questions are coming in an unstructured way. And from those questions, bot has to understand what intent they are talking about. You have to derive from that intent, from that utterance, the entity. You will have to, from the intent and entity information, you have to go back and knowledge base and the query and get the data. And then but your response is going to be semi-structured or structured, so that you will always, for those kind of intent and entities, this is always the standard response. So based on the intent, based on the entity, there is always a standard response. You will convert that response to from text to speech, and then you will project that answer back to your user. So those are the component in a level 2 always getting unstructured questions, but responses are always generated in a very structured or semi-structured manner. Level 3 is a more of a conversation solution. You do have speech to text, text to speech, but it is also has a knowledge of the context. What is the context behind it? It can generate natural language. It can generate response in a natural language. So your questions are coming in an unstructured way, and your responses are also generated in a unstructured natural language, so that you can user can understand. You are doing a backend query, and to get to your knowledge base to get the information. A bot now has a role and a persona, so it has some sort of a personality, and it is chit-chatting with your user base based on the personality. It has a disambiguation capability, so that if it doesn't know what is the question is, it can clarify. And of course, it takes unstructured questions, it classifies the intent and entity from those unstructured questions. So that's your level 3. Then you have a level 4. Level 4 has a lot of things which level 3 has, but it also has consultative goal setting. It really has notion of finding what is the user needs are, why a user is talking about, what is the underlying behind entity or the need. So it has another component called need assessment, that it understands what the user's needs are. It will do the chit chat to understand the needs, and based on the need, it will provide the recommendation alternatives. If there are multiple alternatives, it can connect the alternatives and it can negotiate the best option which connects with the user needs. So those are the major thing here. Though level 3 and level 4, the major difference is that it has a capability to goal setting capability to understand, point user to understand their need, and it based on the need assessment, it can generate alternatives or the recommendations, and then it can negotiate for the proper solution, proper recommendation based on the need assessment. So those are the 4 levels of the maturity level for a conversational AI solution.
Nina, there's a question in chat box, like if you want to answer.
What is the question? Let me see. What if email has been used in conversation? Then the same thing, if the email is used in the conversation, then you are looking, email text is your utterance.
It's emoji or email? I thought the question
It's an emoji.
Emoji, sorry. If the emoji is used in the conversation, then yes, the bot should know the different emoji and say whether it's sad or happy or thumbs up, thumbs down, any of those things. So the bot will be trained to understand different emoji symbols and will basically understand whether it's affirmation, whether it's a happy statement or a sad or whatever it is. Yes.
Yeah, in our ways of thinking, emoji is an utterance.
Yes.
And utterance has to be converted into a intent.
Intent. So yeah, emoji will be utterance, and you convert in a happy intent or a sad intent, or thumbs up is, yes, affirmation intent, or thumbs down that they don't like your response, right? So that's, let me, so I just wanted to tell you before I give the phone back, the mic back to Arvind, that there are, I have three conversational AI online courses, but I gave you a coupon for 2 of them. And by the way, I'll send you the PDF, the DataHour team, because I added this last night. So the PDF you might have maybe slightly outdated. So I will send you the PDF. So using these are free coupons, and they are valid for 5 working days starting now till March 19th. Today is 14th. So if you want to sign up for any of these courses, this course is done using IBM Watson Assistant, but we are developing a course on the ChatGPT conversational experience. What are the typical use cases in the ChatGPT area, which should be available in the next few months. So watch for my course. But in the meantime, we have given you how to build a conversational AI solution using IBM Watson
Nina,
Assistant.
while I'm speaking, maybe you can put these on chat also, so that way.
Yeah.
Our team can share it.
So, okay, so yes, I will do it. And now I'm giving the mic to Arvind, who will be doing the case study on conversational AI using ChatGPT.
Okay, I'm going to use one slide here to talk a little bit about what I will present, and then I'll get into my case study. So one of the things I do want to point out to you here is that there is level 2 and level 3. Keep an idea on what we saw in level 2 versus level 3. Most of the state of art today is somewhere between level 2 and level 3. In other words, nobody has completely completed a level 3. Most of the solutions that we have in the marketplace today are partial level 3s. And of course, people are yet to climb all the way up to level 4. There are minor components here and there, but most of the time, level 4 is still in a future land. So if you take something like Dialogflow from Google or Watson Assistant from IBM, these are the solutions that are trying to get to a structured level 3 conversation. Why is it a structured level 3 conversation? It does have some level of natural language generation, but in a lot of ways it's template driven. So it's not really a real conversation that you can do in a natural language. And also when you see something like ChatGPT, it has got a very good natural language generation capabilities, but it lacks disambiguation. And it also lacks a fair amount of the work that you would do here in context management. I'm going to use my case study to illustrate how ChatGPT would work in a Python helper situation. And there I will show you what is the impact of not having all the level 3 components there. So you'll have an appreciation for what you will get out of a fully developed level 3 solutions versus where the industry is right now. So from an evolution perspective, in 1990s, we saw the start of some of the level 1 solutions. Over the last 10 years or so, we have seen a fair amount. And I'm hoping that by the second half of this decade, maybe by 2026 or 2028, we'll start to see a lot more of level 4 consultation solutions. Now, just to give you an interesting aside, my PhD thesis happens to be on a level 4 consultative session. So I'm hoping that before I retire, at least I can build or somebody can build a level 4 solution that works in a real production environment. So with that, let me now move over to my screen here, and I'll show you the case study. Okay, what I'm going to do is I will be utilizing generative AI solution. Behind the scenes, we have one of the OpenAI solutions that we are using. Let's not worry about exactly which one it is because it doesn't matter. These are all solutions that are growing over time. So whatever I show you here, chances are if you were to try the same queries with ChatGPT tomorrow, you will see a different response because these systems are constantly learning. And that is basically one of the key things that happens with any of these solutions, that they learn from the environment that they are in. I'm going to take an example of Python, and I will be the user in this case. So for example, in Nina's example, you saw Jim as a traveler who was traveling, and then there was an agent. In this case, the user is me. I use Python. I use it quite a lot. But unfortunately, I use it only once a month. Most of the other time I'm teaching. So I don't always remember every function. And very often, what do? I go to Google and I look for a certain function and I look for the syntax and try to get it from there. So 60% of my time is spent in remembering the Python function and syntax and working out and finding out exactly the syntax I should be using. About 20% of the time that I use is on synthetic data generation. In order to test my functions, I have to do some level of data generation so I can test the functions. About 10% of the time, I spent in connecting the code segments. And the last 10% of the time I spend in designing and refining an algorithm. Now, the pieces that I really like about are the designing and refining the algorithm, and also maybe to some extent the connecting the code segments. Where I spend most of the time is not that. When I'm spending most of the time is on 80% on trying to remember how to mechanically do those things in Python. So is it possible for me to use generative AI to help with the 80% so I can focus more on the 20% that I do? In order to illustrate that, I'm going to take a very simple test problem. The test problem has got two data sets. I've got hospital data, which is by lat long. So latitude and longitude associated with a particular hospitals are available. And then I also have a demographic data by county. So in US, you have the notion of a county, which is smaller than state, but bigger than a city. A county is basically a collection of cities put together. And the US Census provides that data actually all the way down to census tract, which is the zip code level, but we can aggregate it at different levels. And let's say I have the data available at the county level, which is where it makes the most sense. However, what I would like to create out of this process is a merge file that has got my hospital data and demographics. And it is, of course, at the county level. So in order to do that, I need to merge the two files. And what I'm telling you here, and I did not tell the chatbot as I started working with it, is that there is a little bit of a nuance to this program, because you have to find out what is the connection between the lat long and county, because the top data you see is indexed by lat long, and this is indexed by county. So what do I expect? So this is the work that I like to do. My algorithm should essentially be reading the hospital data. It should be reading the demographic data. It should convert the lat long to a county. So it should create the lat long to add a county column. It should.
Does everybody know what is a lat long?
A latitude is a lat, or a latitude is a on the globe. You have got a latitude for every location, and the longitude is the way it is vertically handled. So it's basically one is east-west and the other is north-south. So that's basically the lat long. Then you have to merge the two files on county as the index, and then create the synthetic data out of that, and then test the program on the synthetic data. Okay, so I'm going to be brave. I'm going to start with a query. And the query I have here is, I have two files, and I'm giving you exactly the way I think about it, right? So I provide the fact that one of the files is indexed by lat and long, and the other is by county FIPS, which is a 5-digit index that is associated with the county, and it uniquely identifies the county. Can you create a Python code that reads those two files and merge them into county FIPS, and then create the synthetic data and test the program using synthetic data? So what you see here, going back to Nina's statements, is these are the utterances that get converted in my mind into intents, or in the chatbot's mind into intents. So the intent here is to create a Python code and create a synthetic data. There are a number of entities that are involved here: the hospital.csv, the census.csv, the fact that it is indexed in different ways. And there is a fair amount of disambiguation that is needed here. I did not make a very good statement. I left it vague. So for example, Nina just corrected when she said lat long. What is lat long? Well, lat is latitude, long is longitude. Now that's something I didn't say that. I was using colloquial words. Now, the second thing is I did not say how connect the lat long to county code. So that's something that I'm leaving as an exercise. What fields are there in each file, and what to do if there are duplicates? I didn't say anything about that. And what are we testing? So I just simply said, create a test data and test it, but I did not say what are we testing. So I get this response from generative AI. The first part is pretty good. So it shows pandas as the library. By the way, in some of the instances I got non-panda answers also, and they turn out to be a lot longer. So fortunately, this generative AI solution is getting a little bit more smarter at using pandas, which is definitely a better library. So it found ways to read the files, which is good. So these are the first two sentences here. So it created them into data frames. Then it said, I'm going to merge it. And it said, I'm going to merge it on county FIPS. Well, I didn't say that the first file has county FIPS information. So this is where it took a logical jump, and it said that I'm going to merge it on county FIPS without realizing that the file here, hospital.csv, does not have a county FIPS. I never said that. And then it says created to synthetic data. So it is creating some kind of a synthetic data on the merged file, which is not what I was expecting. And then it fills it up and prints out that result. So it definitely will work, but will it do my problem? The answer is no. So essentially, I got something where I think I now know how to read and I know how to merge. So my objectives are partially fulfilled, because if the only thing I'm looking for is a syntax for how to do the merge and how to do the read, it's giving me that. Now, if the only thing it needs to do right now is if it can also tell me how to convert lat long to county column, and also if it can give me a better way of creating the synthetic data, then I should be good to go. And then eventually I need to tell it what to test so that it can test the program. So what do? I go and change my request. So in this case, now I'm going to say, can you create a Python code that reads these two files, converts lat long to county FIPS, and merges? So I basically emphasized the word that the lat long need to be converted. So I made that into a specific step. And I'm hoping that in the process, the generative AI solution will be able to work through that thing. By the way, one of the things I should have mentioned in my last example was natural language generation can be other kind of generation. So in this case, the generation is not natural language. In this case, we are actually generating a program, a Python code out of it. So generation could be natural language, it could be image, it could be a program, it could be anything. So in this case, what you see here is that it took my message, it says, okay, fine, I need to convert. So what it did was latitude and longitude, it says I've got two codes, I'm just going to add them together and I'm going to create something called county FIPS. Well, that's not really right, because county FIPS is a specific 5-digit code, and it is not, if you added the two together, you're going to get some random number out of that. That is not the county code. So I'm going to ignore this output and I'm going to go to the next one. So I'm going to now go very specifically and say, how do you convert lat long to county FIPS? So now I'm going to ask a very, very specific question and try to see where I go with it. And the response I got is in natural language. Clearly, I didn't say anything about writing a Python code for that. So it simply said, hey, there are geocoding services like Google Map and US Census geocoder tool, and you can basically use them to convert a lat long to a county FIPS. And both services will return. So this is the right answer, but it doesn't solve my problem because I'm still looking for a Python code. So I modified my query to say, how do I write a Python code to use Census API to convert a US lat long to a county FIPS code? Okay, so now I'm emphasizing the need that I need a Python code. Please do notice that in the process, I'm changing my prompts, I'm changing my utterances to get to the right intent. That is very important, because in most cases, you're going to find that for a good level 3 conversational AI solution, it needs to either use a good intent or a good disambiguation capability to get to the right intent. In this case, since generative AI solution that I'm using does not have a disambiguation capability, I'm going to use changes to my utterances to do a better intent creation. This is, by the way, called prompt engineering. This is one of the hottest topics right now. If you go into any of the ChatGPT related work, There's a lot of work people are doing in terms of defining how to do prompt engineering in the right way, where you can reorganize your prompts in a way that they can lead to the right intent being captured from there. Okay, as soon as I give that as the new prompt, now the response I get is a specific code. And this is actually a good code because it is giving me a process. It is telling me how I can use the Python code. And it also tells you that you need to give your lat long. Now, the important thing to remember is that it did not connect it back to the rest of the program. So it lost the context of what I was doing. I would have expected the program to insert that code here and find a way by which it would take the lat long from each row of the hospital data, apply that code as a function, and bring back the county FIPS coming out of that. So that's basically one of the context capabilities that is missing here. And what it did do was to give me the rest of the code. So the good news is I still have to do connection across my code components to make them work, but it did manage to give me the right syntax. And this particular capability here is worth about 20 minutes of my time because it won't be that easy for me to find it if I'm trying to find it through just simply Googling that data. Okay, now I'm going to follow the logic and I'm going to say, give me a table with 10 rows of synthetic data using valid county FIPS, population, income, age. So one of the things I did here was to now go and specify that I'm looking for 10 rows of data, I'm looking for county FIPS, I'm looking for population, income, and age. So this is really the county data that I'm trying to get out of that. And the generative AI gave me a table. So once again, generative could mean synthetic data. It could mean a table that you may be generating, which is very good. This is right, like the capability, it is not natural language, it is generating a table now. The only bad news here is that it gave me codes, but it did give me some invalid codes. And if you remember, I did tell it to give me valid county FIPS. So in this case, it could not really understand what is meant by a valid county FIPS. Probably it thought that just so that it can use a 5-digit code, that should be good enough. But in this case, 02001 does not have a corresponding county associated with that. Neither does 3001 or 700. The rest of them are valid counties. Now, this is exactly where you have to be careful about how you use these solutions. So when you get an answer, don't assume that that is right. You have to go and validate it. So how would I summarize my experience? It did manage to do what I was trying to do with it, which is that it got me the syntax for the code associated with the top 5 functions here. I didn't really get down to doing the testing, but that was my laziness or my mistake. I didn't really give it enough on the testing of the program. But if I had, I'm pretty sure that generative AI would have given me the code for that. In doing so, it did a fairly good job of intent detection as long as it was within its prerogative. So wherever it required disambiguation, it could not do it. So if you're looking for all the key capabilities to do a good conversational AI solution, intent detection, entities, context maintenance, disambiguation, strategies to drive the conversation, and natural language or data generation, the solution offered me the capability to do intent detection. One of the things that I really liked about Gen AI was its ability to do entity extraction. A lot of the current solutions I use do not really have this level of sophistication in entity extraction. For both intent detection and entity extraction, prompt engineering is very important because without disambiguation, you have to kind of think about exactly how you're going to give the right prompts, like right utterances to the solution. And also, as I showed you earlier, it did not have a context maintenance. So when I started asking follow-on questions, it did not go back and keep changing the Python code. So those are some of the things to watch for. And of course, one of the key things to worry about is need to check and validate. In a exam situation, I gave a set of students exam questions, and I said, it's okay to use ChatGPT. But I made sure that the ChatGPT answers would not be exactly correct. And guess what I got out of the students? Most of them ended up just copying ChatGPT answer without questioning exactly what the answer should be and whether ChatGPT was providing the correct answer. So as much as my students could not get high scores based on that kind of an answer, you may get an embarrassment in using these kind of generative AI solutions unless and until you go and check and validate those outputs. So that those control mechanisms that Nina was talking about earlier in terms of governance are not yet in place. That is something that you as a user will have to manage. I hope that over the next 5 years, we are going to see a lot more of the conversational AI solutions that are fourth generation, where they will have a lot more human-like capabilities. But for now, the Python helpers are very good at helping you with syntax, helping you with some of the text synthetic data generation kind of capabilities. Feel free to use these capabilities, and also keep a lookout on the courses that Nina is offering, because that's how we are going to show you how to design your own conversational AI solutions. Any questions or any remarks from Nina? Nina, you want to show them the...
Yeah, let me, I did share the, let me share my screen again. I did share my PDF document with the host of this meeting and the moderator, and I also shared the coupon. Coupon is not valid until the session finishes. So I think few more minutes and then you will have a free access to the course. So I will suggest in 5 minutes, you will get free access to both of these courses. One is on just a design principles for designing conversational AI experience. And the second is really building a conversational AI solution using IBM Watson Assistant.
Okay. Is there any questions, guys? You can ask now.
How many people are using conversational AI? I mean, if are you guys using or interacting with any chatbot presently? Either at work or for your personal use? Like a lot of time you go to Amazon and any of those shopping sites, they have a chatbot sitting behind, interacting with for most of the common questions.
Yeah, some other people are saying
Guys,
that.
there is a question in chat in the Q&A section by Nilesh. Please do answer it.
Okay, let me see.
It is intent is ambiguous, then what?
If the intent is ambiguous, then you should use disambiguation to
Clarify it.
clarify it. That
Yeah.
is basically the purpose of disambiguation. And most of the time, that is a very hard thing to do. Why is it hard? It requires domain knowledge to interpret where there is a problem. So why is it that ChatGPT or any of the Gen AI solutions are not able to do disambiguation? It's because disambiguation is dealing with nuances of a particular specific situation. So this is really the hardest capability. You can actually create disambiguation in a hardwired way. Most of the current solutions like Watson Assistant or Dialog Flow from Google, they programmatically find all the disambiguation problems and solve it that way. Statistically finding these disambiguations and solving them is hard, because this is where your intent is incorrect or it is missing. It has got some missing components.
Any other question? There is, looks like there is one more question. Let me see.
Yeah,
it
by
here.
Rubita.
What kind of test is needed to know our model is good enough? And I think that in any solution, you look at, you will have to generate a test data set or different utterances and then basically see how correctly your bot is answering those questions. So you will have to design, you will have to design your solution in such a manner in multiple iterations. The iteration one, you check all the questions, all the response, randomly generate all the utterances and see what responses bot is generating. Based on the answers, you might have to go back and fix your knowledge base of utterances or intent deduction or entity extraction, and then go to the second iteration. So you, most of the time, using any standard tool like IBM Watson Assistant or Google Dialogflow, you can design a good solution with more than 80% accuracy for your domain with whatever knowledge you are feeding in 3 to 4 iterations.
Yeah, one of the things I want to augment to what Nina said was your expert knows the right answer. So when you do the testing, you put the expert response and the bot created response and look at side by side and see if they're same or not. And if they're not same, have the expert tell you whether the bot generated response is correct or not. And that is how you're going to find the accuracy. Let me also answer the question about how do you use ChatGPT to summarize a research paper. Very good question. And it's something where you have to have the right prompt. Just giving it the research paper and saying summarize it, you're probably going to get not necessarily a very good kind of answer. What you do need to do is to use your prompt to provide a lot more details on what you're expecting in the summarization. Especially if it happens to be a technical paper, it is very important for you to use your prompts to structure the response and let the ChatGPT follow the structure that you're providing. I use ChatGPT to create a summarization of all the information I needed to know about ChatGPT itself. And in doing that, I gave it 10 questions in my prompt. And using those 10 questions, I pretty much gave my structure of what I was expecting in the summarization. And that's how I got the right answer. I think we are running out of time.
It looks like there is one more question. No? How does a bot understand the context of the conversation?
Yeah, so basically in this case, the bot needs to keep a track of the context. The example I gave you, Python helper, it should have kept all the previous utterances or intents or entities associated with that and answered it with those in the database. Now, one way in which you can actually use ChatGPT to take context is anytime you ask a question, you're doing a conversation, you keep all the previous utterances as part of your question. So that way you're giving it the entire history. If I had done that, it would have kept the context, but otherwise it would not. So essentially you are keeping a database of all the facts that you're memorizing about the context of a conversation.
And context is a very important thing. Even in the Alexa now, they have the context capabilities. So if you say that, if you ask a question and then you say something else after that, it will remember what you had asked previously. So the context is really maintained, as Arvind said, by extracting all the entities and intent from your previous utterances and keeping track of those, what was asked previously, because your latest utterance may override the entity extracted 3 or 4 utterances before. So you have to keep track of what I extracted from each utterance and in which order. But context is very, very important. It looks like there is one more question. No, how does a bot? This is the same thing, right?
Yeah, we answered it.
Answered it. Are you referring to FAQ bot here?
FAQ is kind of a bot. So yes,
FAQ is more like a level 1 bot.
level 2.
It can be level 1 and 2. If it is, the questions are also going to be asked structured and answers are structured. But if it is anybody can ask, then it will be a level 2 bot. So frequently asked questions bot is really your, depending upon how you're providing input to the user to ask questions, it is can be level 1 or level 2. What is county FIPS? County FIPS is an identifier which is given at a county level. So you have cities, you have a state, right? In any country, you have a city, and the county is another way of representing a geographical area. That's it is an identifier given to each county or each city or each state within the United States. So it's just a ID.
And it's a 5-digit ID.
Yeah, it's a 5-digit ID. So with using that ID, you can uniquely identify that this county is in this state within USA. Because you can have multiple counties with the same name in different states.
Yeah, by the way, FIPS stands for Federal Information Processing System. So this is something that the US Census creates in US.
Yeah, you have to give because there are names which are common across there are same names being used in different counties in different states, though the county names are different in a given state, but they can be same between the two states.
Just like we use PIN code in India.
PIN code, yeah, that's a good example.
That's a good example.
Yeah. So Prasanta has another question. Unless you have AI capability, you cannot have a context. You can actually have a context in a level 1 kind of an environment without having the AI capability. You just have to keep it in the database. Context is nothing but your temporary storage that you're keeping in the database. However, what you cannot have is your ability to automatically create content, create context. So, for example, when I say words like tomorrow, the context is today's date is X, Y, and Z. That is something that I can programmatically find out. I have the clock in my calendar and I can find out those things. What I cannot do is to keep updating my context list based on the natural language statements that are coming.
Anybody else?
Okay, looks like no more open questions.
Okay, and you will get the PDF directly from the host and the moderator. And since the session is ended, it will come to you now.
And I provided my PDF earlier, so
We will provide all the documents to them via email after the session. So there's nothing to worry about. So I guess there's any more questions. And thanks a lot, Arvind and Nina, on the behalf of Analytics Vidya. I would like to thank you for your time and for delivering such a wonderful session. I'm sure our audience found it very insightful, and hopefully we can conduct more such sessions with you in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for attending the session. We truly appreciate it. And thanks to you for giving us the opportunity to present.
Yeah. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.